6 minutes past 10 o'clock. Thank you to Matthew Spill. He gave us the latest news for us on this Thursday. If you're just joining us, we're talking about New Year. We're talking about expectations and pressures of resolutions, and we've talked about goal setting a little bit, and we've talked about themed months like Red January, Veganuary, and we've talked about motivations, and we're going to talk more about goal setting and what that looks like for the remainder of the year, not just January. January is 1 month of 12 months that we have in 2023. And so, of course, I'm here with Hayley and Tammy. And now, fresh from his winning streak, we've got Carl Williams joining us, who's been doing some socialising. We've talked about socialising as well this evening. And step into January where people are doing 10,000 steps with Megan Starr Foundation. It's a social thing as well as a fitness thing. And it's things like that make things a bit different. And Carl, I'm going to come straight in and talk to you and ask you, have you made any resolutions? If so, why? If not, why? And how do you frame them?
Okay, well, we haven't got a lot of time here. I think it's half an hour, but where do I start? There's achievable goals, there's dreams, and then there's ones in between. And yes, I've made some loose goals and some very definitive goals. I do have a list of 10 back at home. Unfortunately, I don't have them with me right now because I'm been playing pool and whatnot. But yes, I have some short-term goals, some medium-term goals, some long-term goals, and then some lifetime achievement long-term goals. So how I generally look at my goals is before you can set a goal, I think you need to look at where you're presently at and where you've been prior to that. And you know, if you just go in off the top and you haven't got anything to go off, then really, have you thought about that goal? And really, how do you make that achievable if there isn't anything behind that? So firstly, I go back and I look at my goals from the year before, and I go, right, firstly, before did I achieve them? Looking back now in hindsight, were they realistic? That's the thing that I would normally go in and say. So were they realistic? Because I'm not going to beat myself up about it. If I've written something down, I want to earn £10 million this year, and I've only got a small business in Pembrokeshire Dog. Is it achievable for me right now? No, probably not. But if I said it, should I beat myself up about it? No, I probably shouldn't. So I would look at those goals and I'd be like, right, were they first of all realistic and achievable? That's where I would start. Then from that point, I would then look back and assess if I had made them or if I hadn't made them. And I would check, right, if I haven't made them, what could I have done better? And I would only pick 3 things that I could have changed. If I could have changed a million things, then really it wasn't a realistic goal. But if I've only changed 1, 2, or 3 things that could have made that big difference, or the difference between making it and breaking it, then I can really nail down on that for the next time and look at which one I would then need to focus on first. Because would this one help the end game, or would this one help the short game? And then we'd really break that down. Then from that point, it's only at that point. Can you see I've gone through pre-contemplation and I'm kind of looking at everything beforehand, and I haven't even looked at a goal yet. So before I do all of that, I would go back and I'd probably spend a good few hours, because if you're really serious about your goals, it's not something that you should just pick and tick off in 10 seconds. It needs to be thought about, and it needs to be, you know, all these things need to be put into place. So I would look and see, right, okay, this is what's happened. Am I going to continue these goals on and move them on to the next year? Or do I need to change my angle from them and then pursue with a new goal?
Wow. Tammy, that's full. That's a full measure. It's not just, it's 11:55 on December the 31st. I need a resolution. No. There's method and there's thoughts there. Tammy, what are your thoughts on hearing that for the first time?
Oh, fantastic listening. The idea of that, you know, the short term, the medium goals, the long term, and, you know, extending beyond long term goals. And again, it's that planning. It's not a knee-jerk reaction. And Hayley and I spoke about that with Tom earlier. It's about having the substance. It's about the planning. It's about having those incremental steps to get to the goal that you want. So it is long-lasting. We're not going to fail. We are going to just carry on with it. So really good to hear, Carl.
Yeah. And Hayley, it sounds similar to your method that you mentioned, that you've got some things that you're aspiring to, and you've got your goals and you've got your methods for getting there. One thing that Carl mentioned that we haven't mentioned so far actually is that comparison to last year, and that sense of actually a new year doesn't necessarily mean brand new me. it's like every year is an extension of who we were yesterday and last month and last week and whatever. And looking back and reflecting and looking forward, we don't have to go for a 180 character realization going into the new year anyway, do we?
No, and I think that's the thing, isn't it? Being realistic with everything, whatever that goal is, whether it's exercise or whether it's something else, a new job or whatever it is, being realistic. And for me, self-knowledge is a superpower. That's my motto. And I love the fact that you're looking at where I'm at now, where have I been, what's worked in the past, what's not. So I can take those skills into the future. The things that have worked, I can take on with me. Things that haven't worked, we leave them there.
Yeah. And then, Carl, we've been talking about people that may have made resolutions. They may have been thorough. They may have planned it. They may have the systems in place that they're going to do. Or it might be some pie in the sky thought that I'm going to do it this way and this is what I'm going to do. And we were talking about, statistically speaking, there's a day coming up in the next week or so, which is coined Quitters Day, where people have made these grand resolutions and they're thinking, right, this is going to change my life this year. And then all of a sudden, 2 weeks in, the going gets a bit tough. The consistency gets a bit tough. The monotony gets a bit tough. What techniques have you come across through your background that if people are finding it a bit tough, what should they be thinking about? Because if it's too tough when there's like a lack of enjoyment, or it's too tough, I physically can't do it. There's different things at play there, isn't there? So what should people be looking out for as we enter this second and third week into January?
Firstly, it's your expectations of yourself. If you are one of these people that makes a goal every year, you break it every year, then realistically, making a goal on New Year's Day isn't a way for you, in my opinion. I think what you need to do is you need to strategize and go, okay, let's look at my past record. And you'll notice I'll keep going back to past record. You can't become anything if you don't see where you're at and you can't understand and be open and honest with your current situation. So when you're in that position, you've got to go, right, okay, well, I know I'm a quitter by this Mad Monday on 16th, as it might be, whatever this time around. Maybe I start on the 17th. Maybe I shake it up. Maybe I use the first 2 weeks to actually break myself in. If I am I'm saying I'm gonna do, I don't know, a marathon every day. I know I'm speaking really big now. Maybe I'm saying I'm gonna eat really clean every single day. Well, why are we starting there, people? Because we've done this for 10 years before. And the definition of insanity is to continually do the same thing and expect a different result. Okay. So if we're making the same goals and we're failing at the same hurdle, then guess what, people? You got to mix that up a little bit, haven't you? So what we do in that position is we make realistic, achievable goals, which are mini goals. So it might be, okay, I've got a past record of going Monday to Friday, eating really clean and healthy. And on the weekend, it's takeaway time, isn't it? On the weekend, it's alcohol and sports time or whatever it might be. Then maybe without dropping alcohol, you should just go, okay, normally I get sloshed on a Friday and Saturday. I drink 10 pints. Maybe I'm going to limit that to 5 this week. And I'm going to get that and I'm going to hit that achievable goal. And then the next week, you know what? I'm fancying this one. I'm going to go 4. And then you aspire then to improve. And as you achieve, you are more likely to achieve moving forward, because success breeds success. And every time we get a knockback, we go, oh, maybe I'm not good enough, or maybe this is that. And you lose your confidence and you doubt yourself. So it's all about the little wins. Every single time it's about the little wins. It's about putting yourself in a position where you can't really fail. And you turn around and you go, I've made my day the best day. If I get up by 10 a.m. in the morning, I've made my bed and I've brushed my teeth. Anything above that, for example, is a bonus. Then guess what? Let's set our goals there. Because when you nail that every single day of the week, it becomes second knowledge. And when you've done it and it becomes second knowledge, it is not difficult then, because then it becomes routine and routines become habit. So then from there, when getting up was hard before and we've nailed that, then we can go, right, by 10 o'clock now, I've also got a little 10-minute walk in, or I've had a good nutritious breakfast. So maybe it should take till past this doomsday Monday, whatever people want to call it, to actually go, right, this is a break-in couple of weeks. Don't be too harsh on myself. Let me use this as my lost leader, and let's change the game moving forward.
I like that a lot. And food for thought there with those mini goals and success breeding success. Tammy, you've got some thoughts on habit forming.
Well, just to follow on and to firstly agree with Carl. If you do the same, expect the same. You know, and that's what we do as humans. And those kind of like those little steps, if we do them enough, that repetition, they do become habits. And we know it takes about 3 weeks to actually start a new habit and to kind of put the protein down so it becomes a new neurological pathway. So again, just that repeating. And yes, it is hard the first day. Second day, hard, but not as hard. And by the time we get to like day 21, day 22, actually it's not as hard. And we look back to where we've come from and we can see how far we've come. So I just wanted to jump in there with Carl.
Yeah, and forming new habits is difficult. You're going through barriers. You're going through these neurological pathways that are very set in their ways. And Hayley, just how like I've mentioned Step into January a few times and about it being a social aspect. With it being a social aspect, there's also not necessarily expectation, but an accountability buddy. They're not there to judge you if you don't do it, but they're there to help you form it. Accountability, or having someone like-minded support you through what you're doing, whether they're doing the exact same or not. How important is it to share or confide in trusted sources whilst you're trying to change certain aspects of yourself? Oh, I can't hear you. You're on mute.
Having someone to cheer you on and support you, and to be there when you do fall off the wagon, to just to be able to rationalize with somebody else, because sometimes you make a mistake, or you fall down at the first hurdle, to be able to say to somebody, look, I've done this, and they go, okay, that's fine, let's start again tomorrow. That can make the difference between success and breaking a habit, or not even making a habit.
Yeah, so having someone there, as I say, and it's not necessarily someone that's doing it with you. It's just someone that you can confide in to just to keep you accountable. So, you said yesterday that you were going, when you were going to go out, you were going to go down from 10 to 5 pints, for example. You've got someone there with a little scorecard almost, and be like, oh, actually, you went over. But I suppose you're looking for someone that's not going to judge you for it. Is that fair to say? Sticking with you, Hayley?
I think you don't want somebody judging you, but you do want somebody who's going to be a little bit tough with you as well. Supportive and tough, firm but fair. That's my kids say I am. Firm but fair. You know, yes, you've had a bad day, that's fine, but you start back tomorrow. Let's not get into the mindset of I failed now, so that's it. I'm not going on. So you've got somebody who keeps you going, but it is a good idea to learn that skill yourself.
And actually be self-motivated. And I suppose we touched on this earlier, the why. And Carl, I know that when you've done the 12-week transformation, your why is actually an important, crucial driver as to why we try and achieve anything.
It is the only aspect of achieving anything. That is that. You can use why in every single question, in every single sentence. It is the only thing that will make the difference. Is why, in my opinion. And what we've just gone back onto the support network here. I think where a lot of people may get it wrong is you've got to choose your buddy or your support partner very, very wisely. Now, us three here could be best friends, but we might not be the best. We might not be the best at helping each other in certain aspects. Let's put it that way. I could quite easily say, "Oh, Tam, I can't be bothered to go tonight. I've had a really long day. The kids have got me in. Should we just leave it and wait till tomorrow?" And as my friend over there comes along and says, "Yeah, you know what? I've had a really bad night. Let's just do it tomorrow." And you know what? We give it ourselves that justification. And for the next hour, we feel great. We've both agreed. We're okay. It's all right about today. We'll do it tomorrow instead. When really, that person is probably more likely to help us be hindered in the future because they're there and they're happy to agree with you. So you've got to pick your buddy wisely, and they've got to be able to tell you what's right is what's right and what's wrong is what's wrong. So, sometimes if you're going to pick somebody, because it makes it easier to fail together than it does to fail on your own, then maybe don't pick them at all. Maybe you've got to stand up, be accounted for, and be on your own, because then the ball and the buck stops with you. You can't blame anybody else. Oh, my friend didn't go, so I didn't go. Okay, well, maybe I should have worked a bit harder or pushed myself a little bit more. So that picking that buddy is the most important thing. And then from there, we can look at, well, we've got no excuses. So I've got to then go back to my why. We've got to go back to why am I here? What am I doing this for? What difference will this make to me? What difference will this make to me if I don't do it? And what difference will this make to my everyday living? What difference and why will it make a difference to my health? And what difference and why will it make a difference to my family? There's why in so many different abbreviations of the sense. And if you're answering yourself honestly, you should have a list of, as long as your arm, of things why you should be doing it. And then if you said, why shouldn't I do this? I can tell you right now, if you've been honest with yourself, you'll probably have 3 in a list compared to 33 in a list.
I like that. Yeah, so actually taking that time, but finding your why, the personal journey with me, it took me ages and ages to figure out my why and who I was. And I suppose the trying things and trying the variety and the spice of life and finding what actually makes you feel vibrant is something that's really key. Tammy, finding your own individual vibrancy might not be what you're used to reading in the newspapers. It might not be what you see in the films, but finding your vibrancy and what gives you energy when it's like from nowhere because it's just your calling. It takes trial and error to find it.
Yeah, and I'll also say, whatever you do, make sure you enjoy it. Make sure you enjoy what you do. Whether it's taking up that new hobby or reconnecting with friends or reading or even writing a book, plan your next adventure, anything, as long as you're going to enjoy it. So what works for me might not necessarily work for you, Tom, but I will benefit from it just as whatever you enjoy, you'll benefit from. So it's that trial and error, but again, you do whatever's best for you and not compare yourself to other people because they're on a different journey. They're getting to a different destination.
Yeah, and we're going to be looking in the last part of this show is about not looking at Quitters Day and Blue Monday. We're going to be looking at, we've talked a lot about goal setting. We've talked a lot about motivation. We're going to look at different techniques of how you can set your goals and what you're aiming for and what you're striving for. Carl's already given us a great blueprint as to looking at your short, medium, long term and your even longer term ones, which starts off with reflecting back on where you started from, which is really important. Carl, before I forget, and because I've got you here, one of the first questions that we had, which Haley, we're on the same wavelength here, Haley. Thomas got in touch with us earlier on, and I know that you look at you look at nutrition as part of some of your programs. And what Thomas is looking at is nutrition, and he's looking at specifically about generally reducing your cholesterol. So, what kind of diet would you recommend, kind of going forward into this new year?
Yeah, it's very simple. Natural foods as much as possible. If when you're getting all your hydrogen, all your built up foods, all your processed foods, there's a lot of horrible stuff in there that help them taste nice or whatever it might be, or slow down absorption and things like this, and make it hard for us to bear with. Our body's a very beautiful machine, and it gets through it, and it does its best at breaking everything down. But essentially, a long term diet is going to really put you in a bad position. So you've just got to bring it back natural. The more grain stuff you can make, the more slow, I can't think of the word now, glycemic carbs, low glycemic carbs is the way to be going. So keep it nice and simple, break it down, and obviously it's about eating portion sizes as well. So not having too much of one thing in particular is really, really important. Making sure you are having your portions that are controlled. That is the way to go with it. So all your natural foods, grains, seeds, and poultry, fishes, whatever it might be, vegan foods, whatever it might be, plant-based, but making sure it's nice and simple and as natural as possible.
Lovely. Haley, do you have any questions for Carl that we might have missed on? You're thinking, oh, actually, I really want to, I've got this burning desire to ask this little or big question.
I did have one earlier, but it's gone, and I've got a tendency to do that. Once we go off camera, I'll remember. I think it's really important what Carl's been saying today about making sure you know where you've come from, what your journey's been so far, because it allows you to understand your challenges as well, so you know what's tripped you up before. Is that something that you do with your clients, Carl?
Yeah, definitely. So what we look at is I put them through a bit of a questionnaire at the start. And it's down to about finding your why. And one of the very first questions is, have you exercised before? And it's like, yeah, great. What was your results? Oh, well, I did really well for the first 6 months and then I dropped off. Okay, why did it drop off? And then we go through those questions of doing that. And then what we do is we find out the answers from that. So each question should lead to another question. And there should be 6 or 7 open-ended questions in order for them to get information out of them. You never give them a closed question where it's yes or no, or a yes or no moves directly to an open one. So tell me about that then. And then they break it down. So going from there. So we find out what's happened, what they've done, why they think they've failed, how we're going to change that around so it doesn't happen again. And then I ask them to commit to doing that. And I say, I need you to write this down as part of your goal setting. Let's probably move on on the next section. We'll talk about it. I'll say, I need you to write that down. I need you to sign it. And I need you to not be offended when I show you that message again. I need you to know that if you're going to be accountable, then I'm going to make sure that you're accountable. And you might not like me a lot of the time, but this is part of my job to do this. So either get strapped in and ready to take it, or don't. But yeah, it's definitely one of the things we do. Is we go back, we look through things, we see what has happened, and we assess. And then you said it earlier. I think Tom, you mentioned it about starting new goals. The hardest thing in the world is to create a new habit. The easiest thing to do is move on and develop and form from something that you've previously done and you've done well, because you've got those recognition and those memories, and that success comes back to your mind. I remember when I did that. I remember when I felt this good. I remember how confident I was in my ability of this, that, and the other. And you're okay. Well, great. Well, what was you doing when you were doing that? Okay. Can you remember, what might have knocked you off course at that time and how you got back on track at that point in time? And go, okay, well, what we're going to do is we're going to do this again. We're going to go down that same path. You're going to experience those same things, but we're going to slightly change it. And before we know it, when we're saying we want to get this out of life and we want to get this out of this goal, and we're saying it's a whole new goal. Well, actually, it's probably the same goal, just re-engineered and moved around a little bit.
Nice. That's really important. And Tammy, in fact, I'm going to come back to Carl in just a second, what you just said there. But Tammy, is there anything that you've got Carl here one-on-one? Have you got a burning question you think I really want to ask him this?
Not a burning question, but just to say it's been great to hear about the kind of setting goals and just giving people that long-term vision as well as that short-term motivation. I think it's a really empowering discussion you've had, Carl. Really has.
Thank you.
No, thank you so much for joining us. And in fact, the last part of this show, we're going to be looking at January and beyond. We're looking at 2023 as a whole, as opposed to these arbitrary dates where we start something, we end something, or we're supposed to be miserable on a week Monday, whatever's the media's painted up. And we're going to look at goals. And we've already heard from Carl fantastically well as to how he plans his goals. But we're going to look a little bit beyond that. We're going to look at values. Because if you have value-linked goals, then it's closer to who you are as an individual as well. So that's what we're going to be doing for the last part of this show. So if you have any questions, 01437 764455 is the WhatsApp number. You can email studio@purestradio.com. If you've enjoyed listening to Carl, he'll be back on Synergy Talks with Toby next week, presumably. So email studio@purestradio.com. Carl gives 15 minutes of his time every week to Purist Radio. So thank you very much for that. And we're going to take a moment and we're going to be coming back. We're looking at the rest of 2023, what can be achieved, who do we want to be, who are we already, which has been a big foundation as to what Carl's been talking about. And that accountability, that starting point you just talked about there is really important. Who are we to begin with, and how are we going to get forward? And in fact, Tracy's she's just commented on the Facebook. Great information, guys. Carl, thank you so much for joining us this evening. We're going to take a moment. We're going to have a bit of One Republic with I Ain't Worried. And we're not worried about 2023 because we're going to leave this evening knowing a little bit more about who we are as individuals and what direction and what heading we're going in. Whether we reach that point or not doesn't matter as long as we know which way we're heading, and that's really important. We're going to delve into that in a bit more detail in just a moment. Carl, thank you so much.
You're very, very welcome. Lovely to meet you, ladies. And like we said, needs any, we're all here to help. This is what we do. This is what we love. This is what we thrive from. we found our peace, we found our passion, and what makes you tick is that thing we were asking each other there, and this is what makes us tick. When you find what you got, you're unstoppable.
We are unstoppable. I love that that's your sign off. Carl, thank you so much. This is One Republic with I Ain't Worried. It's just gone. It was 10:30. 10:31 here this evening on Thursday, the 12th of January.